You're an ex-physicist and ex-banker who has launched the world's first integrated mobile health service. And if you could just tell me a little bit about that, the product that you're working on at the moment, and what were the motivations for starting that?
Got it. So think about how stupid is our access to healthcare, right? You and I live in one of the richest countries in the world with one of the best health services in the world. And yet 1 in 5 of us can't get a doctor at the time we need it or when we need it. Of those of us who do, 1 in 8 of us get misdiagnosed. And then those of us who get diagnosed and treated, 1,000 of us a month, that's 2,747 jumbo jets a month, die because of avoidable mistakes, right? If one of us have a mental health issue and we don't belong to a rich family or a professional family, we have a very good chance to end up in jail rather than get cured, right, or managed. 75% of all our kids in prisons have a mental health issue as a root cause of their problem, right? And that's Britain, one of the richest countries in the world, one of the best health services in the world. 50% of the world population has nothing, no access almost to healthcare at all. And yet, they all have one of these mobile phones in their pockets, right? So when we sat back, we said, what if we could deliver most of the healthcare people need on their mobile phone? Because the greatest things about these phones is, for the first time in history, almost, we created a totally democratically distributed, symmetrically networked infrastructure in the hands of everybody, right? In the planet, give or take, right? So I was running a chain of hospitals, and the other thing that happens, I built a chain of hospitals, and the other thing that happens when you run hospitals is you very quickly find out that actually hospitals have very little to do with your healthcare. 90 to 95% of all your healthcare needs is about consultations and diagnostics.
And it was called Circle, wasn't it? Called Circle?
It was called Circle.
Yeah.
Correct. And so the problem with entrepreneurs is that when you get something in your skin, under your skin, you just have to do it, right? Mm-hmm. It's like we're idiotic people of dreams rather than rational, reasonable people. So therefore, I sold what I built, and because I think this is a much better thing to do, and came to do this. And in reality, what we find out is actually you could do a lot more there. And when you start actually, Andrea, creating a clean sheet of paper and say, let me just look at this from scratch, what you find out is actually the model of delivery of healthcare is just completely wrong, because we don't have a healthcare need. You don't have a need to talk to a doctor. You don't have a need to go to a hospital. You sometimes have a simple question you want to ask. Sometimes you have a symptom you want to check. Sometimes that symptom is serious enough so you want to consult a doctor. Sometimes actually for your health, what you should do is monitor your health. You know, the car is much better monitored than you, and therefore never breaks down, because you know when it's breaking down, because you're seeing it. And sometimes you need to do tests, sometimes you need to see a specialist, but there's no such thing as a single healthcare. So we divided it all into boxes and say, how do we meet each of those different needs as opposed to bundle it all into the same thing? And we were amazed, actually, how far we could go today, and that is today.
And you managed, there was a real watershed moment, presumably, when you managed to convince Aviva to become involved, an insurance company.
Yes, but I mean, now we're partners with Aviva, we're partners with Bupa, we're partners with Mercer. We're not partners, for instance, insurance companies with AXA, because they came to us and said they want to have an exclusive relationship so we don't sell it to others. Mm-hmm. And we're not partners with vitality, exactly for the same reasons. Meeting healthcare is common to everybody. It's not a product you sell to people, so we didn't do that. But otherwise, we're partners with all these people. I don't look at it that way. I actually look at it as that was a beginning for it. The starting point for us was, how do you go to people who are most likely to do this? But actually, we are now, most of our customers now, vast majority of our customers now, our members now, are people who just come download the app and take it themselves. We get one download a minute from people, ordinary people who just have heard of us and come in. To put this in perspective, probably 95% of all our members are direct members, not people who come directly to us. They have heard of it, their parents, they have children, they want to have a doctor in their pocket all the time, they want to be able to ask a question anytime, they want to monitor their health, that kind of.
Most of the take-up has been from which geographical area?
Interesting. We don't look at it geographically, so I'm not sure where it is, because we don't look at it. We know UK versus Ireland.
Okay.
But we don't know, because we don't ask which city you live in.
All right.
Although we do have addresses from you once you want something, but we never analyze it that way. It's a good question. We analyze it more on age. We analyze it more on other things like this, but not. But these things often. These things is very interesting. These things often, like, kind of also, when you look at it, breaks your prejudice. The reason we didn't do this is because we all have prejudices that things, well, it can be central London or it'll be rural areas. But you just never know who it's going to be. Like when Amazon was created, they thought that they would sell books in far off who don't have bookshops, and
whereas it actually has become a convenience thing.
Yeah, it was actually professionals living in Seattle, New York, and San Francisco was ordering Amazons. Because they're the early adopters, right? So early adopters are the young, often, and they're the ones who are taking this up.
What about, I mean, sorry to push on the geographical areas. In terms of the countries, have you had any uptake from outside the UK? We're only regulated, healthcare is a regulated industry, so you cannot operate outside countries in which you're regulated. So we only have, interestingly, we get a lot of questions from Iraq, for instance. Very interesting. But I think that's because of the British Army's deployment in Iraq, or was becoming thing, because people seem to have a British ITU, if you want, a UK app store to be able to download. Okay, but if you were, let's say, to try to go for other English-speaking areas like Australia, would you have to get the permission of that health authority in order to operate there? And there's a whole new system.
I mean, when we went to Ireland, we set up in Ireland in a matter of weeks, right? Because so it's not a very difficult thing going into different countries. It's actually pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
You just need to apply, get the regulatory approval, employ local doctors. We always rich country we teach on doctors because healthcare is highly cultural.
Okay. Anything new coming up that you'd like to announce?
Huge number of things that we're doing.
About the product, Babylon.
Yeah, the product that people see now, enough to say, almost has nothing to do with the product that we're working on today. I mean, we're working on a completely different approach to the product today. But we only announce those when we publicly show them.
Okay. Right, I want to go right back to your childhood, if I may, to look at what motivates you from a personal perspective to launch all of these startups. I mean, other than you identified a problem within the marketplace and you've come up with a solution, as with Circle, as with Babylon, and no doubt with the first idea, which was a media service company. Just really to look at your motivation, what drives you, what gives you this energy, because it takes a very special type of person to do something like this. You really have to live it, don't you? It's not 9 to 5.
Yeah, but I also think is who you are. I mean, I was, for instance, a banker, as you said, for a while, and I was an awful banker. I was dreadful at it. I didn't enjoy it. I didn't, you know. So I think that I don't think in life you often have choice on these things. I think is your DNA is built the way it's built. You are who you are. And the biggest mistakes I ever made in my life was when I tried to be what I thought I should be. So I arrived in Britain as an immigrant. So I was one of the refugees that you see on your screens. Now I was one of those people.
How old were you? How old were you when you arrived?
16. I was 16 when I arrived in Britain. And again, same exactly, no different than what you see on the screens was how I arrived. And I was one of these people who didn't speak any English either. So if you ask me how are you, I would say 10 to 4. And then and the mistakes I made was when I thought that I should fit in. When I thought that actually I finished that thing, look, a lot of my friends are becoming investment bankers, I should become an investment banker. Rather than so why did I build Victoria and Gilandi? The media company was because I had no money to do my PhD. I needed money. I built a business. I got lucky. It did very well. I sold it when my PhD finished, and I find out that the guys who sold it for me, per minute of work they did on it, it's fundamentally better than I did. So I thought, why don't I become an investment banker? Because that will give me safety, security, all that kind of things. But I was a miserable investment banker. I hated it.
Did it help you? Has it helped you at all in your seeking finance for your initiatives, having had that background? Even though I'm sure you weren't hopeless, but that background, has that helped you with getting finance?
Of course, but the vast majority of entrepreneurs who get huge finances behind their businesses are not investment bankers or were not investment bankers at some stage in their life.
Yes, yeah.
So finance comes very simply if you have something that people want to invest in, they will invest in. So in Circle, I think we raised more money than any startup in the history of UK, and we raised it in the middle of one of the worst recessions in the history of UK, right, from 2008 to 2011. So I think if you have something that people can identify, people can see that the needs for, you can always persuade people to invest in it if it's the right thing to invest in it. Now you may fail, but as long as you have the right motivations and ambitions and good idea, and people can see that you can really work on it. People always, the world is not short of people who want to invest money. It's often difficult to connect those people.
If you had to crystallize one point that you feel that attracted investors to Babylon, what would that be? What was the thing that sparked their imagination? What was the thing in the solution that you offered? Would you say it was the numbers or more the idea? Or was it you? Or was it a combination of all of it? What do you feel?
I think, look, what are we doing in Babylon? We created Babylon to solve one of the biggest problems in the world, but also one of the least necessary problems, which is delivering healthcare to everyone, everywhere.
Yeah.
Trying to, and we just know it can be done now, right?
Yeah.
So, and we came up with a solution which we don't talk about because obviously we don't want to advertise what it is that we really are doing behind the money.
Yeah.
But when we tell people that we're going to solve one of the biggest problems in the world, and here is how we're going to do it, and people can see that it actually can be done that way, then it becomes a really easy thing, right? So it's like, imagine if I came to your neighborhood, there is an empty plot of land, it looks ugly, it has all sorts of things, everybody hates it. I say, okay, I'm going to come build this house, it's going to be beautiful. and it's going to solve the whole neighborhood kind of issues, and therefore, by the way, because it's a piece of land, it's going to be worth more than what we spend in it, raising money. The problem is not that. The problem is often about, can you find investors who share not just can you find investors who share your dream as opposed to the desire to just make money on the back of your dream? Can you, who share your cause, who want to do what you want to do? So in Circle, initially I had great investors, but when we went public, then we lost control to people who actually were completely alien to our dream or our vision of what we wanted to do, and just came in. And I remember one of them said, well, the reason I joined the board is because I want to get a knighthood, and this seems like a really cool way of getting a knighthood.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, you wouldn't believe this thing, but it's just, I just, so, and that's the challenge. The challenge is not whether you can find money, the challenge is, can you find people who share your vision?
Like-minded people, yeah.
Our vision in healthcare was something else. We thought hospitals are a dreadful place. They can be wonderful places. They should be a place that when you're sick, you know, when you and I are feeling great, we go to a hotel on our holiday, which is fantastically well designed and beautiful food and everything. Why couldn't hospitals be the same? That was our vision. And why couldn't the doctors and nurses who work there run the place, right? In the same way that when bankers run banks, right? And lawyers run law firms, right? Why would doctors be managed by others? So that's what we wanted to run. And then we kind of, when we went public, we ended up with a bunch of guys in a suit who just thought this is all nice marketing, you know. So I don't think raising money is a challenge. I think keeping the values of the business you built and the money that people have invested in you aligned over a long period of time is a challenge. That's a much, much bigger challenge. It's, I think it was Rockefeller who said making money is not a problem, keeping money is a problem. Getting investors is not a problem, keeping investors aligned with your vision is the issue.
It is related to the point. Have you ever attended an MBA course? Have you ever been interested in doing that?
I'm too intellectually stupid to be able to. I don't think an MBA is good with that.
It's quite funny because a lot of the founders that I've spoken to have said that they wouldn't consider it because most of the course seems to be retrospective. It analyses past case histories, and I'm just interested in what you think. And that if you're really going to come up with something, a startup that is interesting, makes an impact, disrupts, it needs to focus on the future rather than the past.
I disagree. I mean, I'm a history buff. I love reading historic books. I'm currently reading, for instance, Lawrence in Arabia.
Oh, are you?
When you read Lawrence in Arabia, you could almost see what's happening in Middle East today, and how disastrous the settlement post-World War I was, and 100 years later we're still suffering the stupidity of that. So I actually think a mistake companies make 50 years ago is no different than the ones they make today.
So it has its value.
Why didn't I do an MBA? Maybe I should have done an MBA. But I actually think why is it that a lot of MBA students don't become entrepreneurs? It's because if you're intellectually very intelligent what you do is you almost think about all the problems that you will have in the process of doing something, right? So you're going to go up Himalayas. If you're a really intelligent person, you do all the analysis, chances, routes, possibility of weather, you build this ginormous list of issues that can confront you.
Yes.
And then you say, you know what, this is just too tough, right? I can't figure out how to solve all of these problems, right? On the other hand, you could just take a step, right? You just say, you know what, I'm just taking my next step and next step and next step. I know by the time I take my 1,000th step, there's going to be a problem in there, but by then I have figured it out.
Yes,
right?
like the lean methodology in business. You take one step, evaluate, yeah.
And so I think there is a bit about an entrepreneur who kind of thing. I mean, I remember when I was a child, my parents used to say to me, there are three kinds of problems in the world. There is a very simple one, kind of don't touch them because everybody in the world, everybody kind of wants, it's easy, right? Everybody. And then there is the impossible ones. Don't worry about those either because it's just for a place for dreamers. But then there's very hard problems to solve. And focus on those because most people get put off by it. And but they're solvable, right? And I think it's the same about being an entrepreneur. You just need to be intelligent enough to figure out what is the impossible problem and what is the possible problem. And then once you decide it's a very difficult problem, but it's possible, you just get on with it and solve it because it's
start chipping away. If just to take you back to this business school again, I mean, if you were going to set up a business school to attract people like you, if it was at all possible to attract people like you, what would you do to create this? What would it look like? What would this school be like? What would the course be like? How would you grab people's imagination? How would you make them consider it?
I love the education we do, and I don't know anything about an MBA course.
Yeah.
But I do think that often the education we do is almost too early, comes almost too early for somebody to value it, right? So most people who do an MBA do it after 2 to 3 years of work practice, and they do it almost as a routine thing. They do their core, do their job, they go do whatever they do for a couple of years, be an analyst in McKinsey or Goldman Sachs. After 2 years, go do an MBA to go become an associate. Right? And I almost think that you benefit from it a lot more if you went a little bit later. So you actually know what it is that you're trying to do. And then when it comes to the courses, I just don't know. I just think that there are so many different MBA courses out there. I can't believe somebody hasn't figured it out. And we all know it's much more about being able to solve real problems with real people, have a breadth of theoretical background, but they would all have that. I mean, that's why Harvard does all these case studies, that's why they all do sandwich things, that's why they all do work placements. Andrea, one thing I learned early in life is a human being shares 83% of its DNA with a cockroach. What makes a difference is the 17%. And people who think they know the answer just because they know a little bit of something.
Yeah. How would you describe founders of startups? But do you notice common things, or do you think they're as individual as anybody else out there?
So I think there's a misnomer. I think when you do a startup, entrepreneur, and I think entrepreneurs come in a variety of ways, right? And we all kind of talk about entrepreneurs, but I think that, and then there's another group of people who cross with entrepreneurs, but often they're not even entrepreneurs. They can be academics, they can be writers, and they're innovators, right? So they're people who want to innovate, right? So I don't know, the Wright brothers were not entrepreneurs, were innovators, right? If you want to, but Thomas Edison was an entrepreneur and an innovator, right? So we now have a bunch of copycats of Babylon, for instance. That's being an entrepreneur, but not being an innovator. We have copycats of ZocDoc. The guys who created ZocDoc, they were the innovators, but then a whole bunch of people copied it, right? So the McDonald's guys, maybe they were the innovators, but anybody else who sets up a little burger shop, they may be an entrepreneur, but they're not innovators. And why do I say that? It's because the characteristics are fundamentally different. So I think I'm much more of an innovator than I'm an entrepreneur. And why do I say that? Because I take a huge kick out of solving major problems. And so that's why I see a continuum when I was a physicist versus when I am doing now. Because as a physicist, I was trying to figure out, can I write an equation that solves the interaction of waves and currents and can predict what happens at seabeds at different days, right? I hugely enjoyed that the same way I hugely enjoy this. But I don't think I will ever enjoy running a restaurant, even if it's my own restaurant and I run it, unless it's a restaurant that is the best restaurant in the world, right? Or I can do it in a way I can invent something that's amazing. So I think Bruno is an innovator with his food in Fat Duck, but I'm not sure other Michelin star restaurateurs or other restaurateurs are innovators. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
I think
Yeah.
those are two completely different characteristics.
Yeah.
So I was, for instance, at a dinner last night. It's exactly what you say. One of our greatest entrepreneurs in Europe had a little gathering, invited a whole bunch of people, and I saw myself not gravitating towards people who wanted to build a business, make it into something, sell it, and buy themselves a house in Kensington, but I would gravitate talking to people who are trying to solve a big problem, or a little problem, or whatever it is, or trying to innovate and come up with something really cool and amazing.
Within that category, who are your greatest heroes? Who do you most admire in terms of innovators?
So I'm 50, right? So by the time you're 50, you're a little bit jaded. So I'm not one of these people who say, oh my God, wasn't Steve Jobs an incredible person? I think he was an incredible innovator. But I don't know him, but from what I read, a deeply flawed human being, right? And therefore, I don't know this about people. So I know there is a group of business people, entrepreneurs that again, I don't want to name names because I again don't know those people, so therefore I could be completely wrong. But they have this image of dog eats dog. In business, you have to be dreadful, awful, you have to kill everybody and win everything for yourself. I just don't identify with them. I just think that they may be billionaires and they may have a huge lot of money and they may even stand for presidential elections. But I don't think that they are what I want to identify as, right? And then there are entrepreneurs who have made wonderful contribution to the world. I mean, it's interesting. I finished recently reading Rockefeller's biography, Titan, and you can see what a complex man he was, right? On one hand, he was a monopolist, but on the other hand, he was a monopolist because he genuinely believed competition destroys value. But he lived relatively simply, and he was deeply religious, and he was deeply frugal, and his wife never had any of the material enjoyments in life, and his kids were, you know what I mean? So I think, I tell you, I'm incredibly lucky. I have the house I need. I got one house, one wife, one family, kind of pretty straightforward guy. And I'm not sure that people who have 5 yachts and 3 airplanes, those trappings that comes with wealth. And unfortunately, why am I saying that? Because unfortunately, those are our culture today. Often those are the motivation for people to become entrepreneurs, right? The picture of, we look at Dragon's Den opening thing is about people in the Rolls Royces or The Apprentice. And I just think that we lost a little bit. So if I did have a hero, it would be the person who brilliant and doing the right thing, being a good, decent human being, solving a big problem that solves. So, does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. If you wanted to recruit somebody like that, how would you go about finding them?
So I think there's a ginormous misnomer again, where we mix up managers and entrepreneurs together.
Yeah.
Right? And I think you can never. Why was I a really rubbish investment banker? Because I can't work for somebody. Fundamentally, I didn't fit into the hierarchy of a bank.
Yeah.
When I was an associate, I told I was a managing director. When I was a VP, I wanted to spend my time with the associate and the analyst, couldn't be bothered with the politics of the thing. I just don't think you can hire an entrepreneur. I think you can improve. I think there are entrepreneurial managers and there are entrepreneurial But I think, therefore, each for their own. And by the way, you don't want the whole world to be entrepreneurs.
No.
They say that 2% of the world are innovators, but you need people who can build things, manage things, make them optimize things. So you need that whole thing. I don't need another entrepreneur in this office. People who are incredibly competent and masters of their own thing and can do their things, because I can tell you all the things I can't do that my people in here are unbelievable at doing. I don't have a clue what they do, but I come up with something and they tell me why it's stupid, and sometimes they tell me why it's right, but it's right.
Yes. There are lots of buzzwords in the industry. There's been sort of lean, agile, disruption. What do you think about buzzwords for a start? And what do you predict the next ones are going to be? I mean, the negative comments about disruption is that you can go way back in time, and there have always been these points of time of disruption where things have changed radically and something has come out of the woodwork that nobody was expecting. So it's meaningless. I mean, what do you think?
Well, it's not meaningless, because the fact that it happened in the past doesn't mean that it's meaningless to talk about it today. So, it's...
What I mean by that is that sometimes within the context that disruption is mentioned, presented as something new rather than something that has existed since time began almost.
No, since time began we always had innovation. But it's the story of the guy who invented chess, which I'm sure you heard, when he went to give it to the Emperor of India, and they asked him, what do you want? And I love it, I want to reward you. And he said, here is a grain of rice. I'm going to put it on the first square, and please double it per square. And in the first row, it went from 1 to 2 to 4 to 6 to 10. By the time it finished, half of the chess thing was a billion and something. But eventually became more rice than the entire history of human beings have produced every by the time it gets to the end. So the emperor got really annoyed with him and beheaded him. So it just goes to show never be too clever. But I think that's what we're getting with innovation. There was a time that innovation was happening all the time, but was slow. We are now at doubling at a ridiculous rate. I mean, my mobile phone today is 1,000 times more powerful than it was 10 years ago. But a mobile phone 1,000 times more powerful than what it is now 10 years from now is a substantially different creature in terms of the leap. It's an exponential. So I think innovation is happening exponentially, and it happened always exponentially in history. And therefore, the doubling of a very large number is a ridiculously large number. And that's all things. I mean, to put you in perspective, we're doubling our knowledge in medicine every 18 months. Think about what that means. That means that 2/3 of everything we know in medicine today, we did not know a mere 5 years ago. The entire humanity's history, we learned more in the last 5 years than we learned in everything behind that. Now, let's say that this is some kind of exaggeration by people who came up with it. That's according, I think, to ideaXme of Google. So let's say in the last 10 years, we've learned most of what we learned in medicine. What does that mean? That means in the next 10 years, we're going to learn 4 or 5 times as much, right? So I think, so what's the next buzzword? I don't know. I come from Middle East, and as Woody Allen kind of took it, is if you want God to laugh, there's an old thing in Middle East that says you give them your 2-year plan. And I think it's the same here, which is, who knows? Who really knows what it is? But it's going at such a fast pace that whoever who tells you they can predict the future, they're talking rubbish.
What about the e-patient movement? Where do you see that all going?
What do you mean by e-patient?
The e-patient movement, which was sort of crystallized by e-patient Dave in America, where patients join together to share information knowledge and experience and help each other find cures to sometimes problems that no doctor has been able to get to the heart of.
Yeah, the reason we call our company Babylon is because 2,500 years ago, if you were in Babylon, you would stand on a square as a citizen, and every other citizen had to ask you what goes wrong, and then you tell them what's wrong, and if they had to face that problem, they would tell you how they got cured. And it was a very simple peer-to-peer system, and Babylon had the highest life expectancy in the world at the time as a result of that thing. And I think that as the world got bigger and knowledge got more, the squares kind of couldn't reach the square, if you want. But now we have a platform to go back to it, right? Where we can share our knowledge. So people like patients like me, all provide places where people can go and share their knowledge and their experiences. So I talk to doctors in Bangalore who say they're sick of their patients. I've been talking to another patient in Boston who tells them, like, this is what you need to do now, right? I mean, and it's brilliant. But I think medicine is about to go through an unbelievable change. I think diagnostic is just about to become free. It's been improving at double the rate of Moore's law in the last 10 years. 10 years ago, it would have costed you $1 million to do a hip-to-toe diagnostic. Today, you can do that for as little as $10,000. That's a 99% reduction in the cost of diagnostics. Far more importantly, we're now going from hospitals and clinics into your home, your body. Google has come up with a little nanomolecule. They think that you can swallow it, and it'll circulate in your body and communicates with your thing about abnormalities in your bloodstream. Other people have got things that, I don't know, in Liverpool University, there's a little gadget, you blow in it, it analyzes your brain for 50 different diseases. It will be on your mobile as you talk. So there's so much happening on that. Secondly, the information in healthcare is already free. As you said, any patient anywhere can find anything. Much more importantly, though, I think what is going to make the massive change to that is that artificial intelligence is now arriving in healthcare, and artificial intelligence would have a fundamentally different approach to this, right? So they would, with artificial intelligence, you were going to have, I mean, as a physicist, I know physicists that now does data analysis without a massive machine helping them to do so. Doctors, meanwhile, you talk to, they say, let me think about what's wrong with you, and then they do it based on their own brain, right? So I think that's going to make a huge difference. And then, as I said, our mobile phones are becoming so powerful. It's not about our phones anymore. It's our sensors. It's things we can wear, soon we can embed, soon we can swallow. And we're going to monitor everything about ourselves communicated, that our algorithms are going to become so powerful that we don't need our doctors to tell us what to do soon. All of that is going to change everything in medicine. Everything that is. And I haven't even started to talk about intervention in medicine. If you think from synthetic biology to electrobiology, from laser manipulation to ultrasound intervention, I mean, we are finding ways, organ reconstruction to nano molecular structures. We're finding ways that we had never imagined. It doesn't really matter in medicine if you are an atheist, a creationist, or an evolutionist. It's neither God nor evolution that is creating new forms of life or molecules. It's our synthetic biologists in the labs in Imperial College all doing, right? We are just about to enter a realm that most of us have no idea. And I genuinely think it will fundamentally change everything that we assume about our lives, everything. You and I'm probably will be laughed at for saying that, but you and I and maybe our children are the last generations of human beings who will die. We will conquer that, right? I mean, if you think about why do we die because we age. We age because our cells cannot replicate themselves precisely, but cancer cells can. How long before we find out from cancer cells how to do that. I mean, by the way, we do it with tomato already. We can genetically manipulate tomatoes not to age, right? So we're going in places that we have never been before, at speed we have never traveled before.
So you've built up this massive bank of knowledge within health. Your motivations are, well, you have an enormous amount of motivations to drive businesses within health. What do you do outside work? Do you have a chance outside work to work for charities, to assist health charities in any way? Or is your business all consuming?
The business is all consuming, but look, in 1995, in 95, the government of Iran did, with the help of a huge number of philanthropists and the philanthropy part of the government, set off on a massive philanthropic crusade of building libraries across Iran. And they built loads of them, right? And often they were pretexts for also building mosques, because they were building mosques and libraries. Anyways, in 1995, and the idea was that they would assimilate knowledge, and that's a highly charitable, right, information. In 1995, an entrepreneur, an innovator called Mark Anderson created Mosaic, which was the precursor to Google, who solved the problem of information. We do not need a library anymore. Any child, whether they're in Kabul or Connecticut or Kenya, have access to all the information in the world, as long as they have access to the internet. Right? I think what we do will be a massive, if we succeed in doing what we do, to solve the problem of access in health.
If you, just based on what you've achieved today, how would you want to be remembered? By your friends and family and within business?
I certainly don't want to be remembered as an ex-Goldman Sachs banker, which is not I spent a few years in Goldman, and my wife always tells me that she's got to fight to make sure the damn thing doesn't appear on my gravestone. I don't think any of us will be remembered. You know what I mean? I think we all think that we're the center of the universe, and the number of people in the world who are remembered are so tiny. And the kind of people who remember us is often our children, if you're lucky, our grandchildren, but certainly not our great-grandchildren. You and I don't remember our great-grandfather and mother. So I think we are often very egotistical, thinking that we matter more than we do. We kind of come, we kind of go. It is what it is. We make our tiny contribution.
What do you think the best thing that you've handed down to your children about you is?
The best thing?
Yes, the best thing.
That I can.
In handing something down to your children about yourself, I don't want to narrow the question down too much. What's the best thing that you will hand on to your children?
Well, like the same thing that my parents handed on to me, which is values by which you live your life, right? So I got married to my wife for her values, not, I mean, she happens to look great, but it wasn't what life, as you know, it's the values of things. And if we can instill those values in our children, then that's hugely important, right?
And what are the most important values that you talk about here in a human being?
I just think it's exactly what you say. It's just be human, right? I mean, so much of our problems in so many things we do is about things where we just forget that we're human. When corporations chase the last bit of money, when investment banks forget that when they lend too much money to a country, they're destroying human beings' life later on, irrespective of the bankers taking the bonus and everything. When airlines tell parents they can't carry the kids, or can't give water to them, they have to sell it to them. It's just, when we lose our basic humanities, when we look at millions of displaced people and saying that, well, I don't care they're being displaced. I just don't want to, I think we just lose who we are as humans, right?
What would you do about the current so-called crisis with refugees arriving from Syria? What would you do?
I don't know enough. All to what you can do.
Yeah.
But you're talking to a former refugee, right?
Yes.
I just spent most of not my summer, my family spent most of their summer in the Mediterranean island hopping. And they are the children of a former refugee who is akin to those other refugees who are trying to actually just swim through the Mediterranean to reach land, right? I personally, I think the Germans are not only showing the way in being human, but they're also showing the way in being savvy. Because who are they taking in? Say they're taking in 700,000 people. That's less than 1% of the population. The German economy is growing at 3%. In less than 6 months, they cover the cost of that. Right? But what are they getting? They're getting the go-getting DNA that got out of its home, swam across the ocean, walked across the continent, and reached not to collect a little bit of benefit, but to build a better life for themselves.
Yes.
But to say that there are even migrants, right? Economic migrants and not even refugees, right? Why wouldn't you let that go? It's like, I mean, you can't have a better job interview if you think about it, right?
Yes.
I mean, I watched a woman being interviewed the other night. She was from Eritrea. She goes from Eritrea to Ethiopia, from Ethiopia crosses in the thing to Saudi Arabia. She was enslaved in Saudi Arabia. She manages 2 years later to find a way to run away, go to, I think the family went to Greece, I think she ran away from there, went from there, walked almost all the way to Calais.
Yes.
Is waiting to get here. Think of a better job interview.
Maybe we should put out a red carpet.
Exactly right.
Yes.
I mean, that person, you think she's really coming here to collect £25 a week? She's coming here to build a better future for herself and her country. And look, I have a wonderful woman in here in my office who used to be the nanny to the babysitter to our children, to my children. She came on her own, left her children back in the Philippines and her husband. After years of working hard, she managed to get them in here by sending money to them as a thing. She has worked herself from being a babysitter to is now practically manages our whole office in here. Meanwhile, her children have now come here. Her son just became the only person from his comprehensive school to get him admitted into an imperial college to learn medicine. Right?
So that certainly shows a special type of drive, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, I'm a huge disbeliever that people are coming to Britain to laze around. That's just not. I mean, look at the statistics. Look, I collected benefits as a refugee when I arrived in Britain. So there is for sure, for a short period of time, you depend on the safety net that exists to find your way. But you do not leave your country to come to the other side of the planet. And look at who else, and look at history, right? One of the most productive contributions in Britain comes from the Jewish community. Just go back 70 years ago. They were all on the move. They had no country. They had no place. Countries took them. Look at what they've done 2 generations later. Right? From our finance to our art, from our sciences to our medicine. Look at what they've done.
Well, it has been absolutely fascinating talking to you. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you very much indeed, Ali.